If kettlebell swings feel awkward, uncomfortable, or just wrong, it's not that you're weak, uncoordinated, or just bad at kettlebells. It's probably that there's something that's not quite off. So today we're going to look at trying to fix that. There's going to be potentially 4 different things which are going to mean that your kettlebell swings are slightly off. If we can fix those things, all of a sudden the swing is going to make a lot of sense. So the first thing to mention is what are one of the 4 potential things that are making your swings less effective. Now the first thing being the setup. The second one being that you tend to squat it rather than to hinge it. You try and use too much shoulders, or your timing's just off. So to start off with fixing this, we're going to look at the setup. So what I tend to do with my clients is get people to stand with the kettlebell either side of their feet, then take a step back, and then make sure your feet are just outside hip width apart. From there, you're going to grip the kettlebell, tip it towards you, and then hike it back and stand up tall before starting your first swing. So that's about the setup. Now, common mistake with that is someone will just stand up tall, grab the kettlebell, and then they might just start going at it as if they've just seen their wife bend over to put something in the bottom shelf in the kitchen. So if you can get that bit set up right, that's going to give you some momentum for the first swing, and then we're going to be good from there. Now, the second problem is that people tend to squat the swing. So in this example video, you'll see that the person is bending at the knee and letting their knee go over their toe, and then they're dropping their height with their hips. Now, the thing to recognize here is the kettlebell swing is a hip hinge movement. So what you need to be doing is to make sure that you are picking the bell up correctly from the floor, setting your hips back, and really think about pointing your hips backwards. And then it's a forwards and backwards movement with your hips. You are hinging at the hips. The third potential reason is that you're using your shoulders too much to do a front raise instead of doing a kettlebell swing. So in this example here, you can see that I'm really using my shoulders to lift up the kettlebell, and there's not really any hinge from the hips. So again, remember, the kettlebell swing is a hip hinge movement, not an arms movement. So the cue I'll generally give here is to tell people, imagine your arms are like 2 ropes with 2 hooks on the end. And so you're just literally holding on for the ride, and you're just basically making sure it doesn't fly off into space somewhere. So your hands are just holding onto the handle to let it not fly off, and your arms are just letting momentum do its thing. Okay, so arms like ropes. The third problem is about timing. So with timing, again, if you can get that setup right and you get some momentum from the first part and then stand up tall, hopefully you're going to get a bit of momentum here. Now, the thing we need to remember is the hips are going to produce the movement. So we need to make sure that your hips are pushing your hands forwards rather than you pulling with your hands. So that goes back to the second tip. And then secondly, we're making sure that the kettlebell is controlling when we are moving. So let the kettlebell come down and hit you in the hips in your lap and to fold you to get that hip hinge. And then you're going to use your hips to send the kettlebell forwards going from there. Now, where problems come is because you become disconnected. So if your hands leave your hips before your hips push them forwards, that's going to be a problem. And if you bend your hips before your hands come underneath, that's also going to be a problem. So let your forearms get in contact with your lap before you send it forwards, and let them come into contact before you send your hips backwards. So again, set up, feet either side of the kettlebell, take a big step back, make sure you're outside hip width apart, grip it, sink your hips, tip the kettlebell towards you, hike it back, stand up tall, and then make sure we've got a hip hinge movement. Arms are like ropes, and we're going to have a float at the top. So if there's this float at the top here, we're not pulling it back down, and we're not trying to push it back down either. Now, on the timing thing as well, also you see a lot of people, and this comes together with the squat, with the kettlebell goes sort of below your knees. So one cue I'd like to give some people is to imagine your favorite cat or child is between your feet while you're doing your swings. Now, what you definitely don't want to do is to hit the cat or your favorite child, because otherwise it's going to be nasty. So you're going to keep the kettlebell high up into your hips to avoid smashing the cat. If your swings have always felt uncomfortable or tiring in the wrong places, hopefully some of those tips will have given you a bit of help. Now, if that's really helped you, then I've also got some tips about how to do the clean, particularly to avoid bruises. If you'd like to catch that video, there's going to be a link up here for you to click to go to next.